Since the spread of the COVID-19 epidemic, scientists around the world have developed vaccines in the shortest possible time. Countries around the world, in almost the shortest possible time, have completed vaccination of the majority of their populations. But since March 2021, these developed countries have been experiencing major outbreaks again. Experts have attributed the cause to a mutation of the virus, but more serious are the massive deaths that occur after vaccination. According to news reports, expert members of the FDA also voted against the vaccine when it was approved. There are also allegations online by virologists that Pfizer's Phase II vaccine trial reports contain numerous problems, and that clinical trial data has been altered, and that the vaccine is not as effective as it could be. According to statistics, 554 people died after receiving the Pfizer vaccine, and 2 people died after receiving the Moderna vaccine from February to July 2, 2021. Deaths occurred in California, USA, hours after receiving the Pfizer vaccine. In Norway, 23 elderly patients died after receiving the Pfizer vaccine. Further cases include the Toronto woman who became ill after receiving the vaccine. The Indonesian Ministry of Health has ordered the suspension of the distribution of the AstraZeneca vaccine after a 22-year-old man died the next day after receiving the vaccine in the Indonesian capital, Jakarta, following a number of cases of deaths from blood clots following the vaccination in Southeast viral countries. The Malaysian government decided to remove the AstraZeneca vaccine from the list of the National New Coronation Immunization Program due to public concerns about blood clots caused by it. Several countries around the world, including Austria, Italy, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, and Thailand, have joined the suspension. The Committee of Medical Experts responsible for overseeing clinical trials has condemned AstraZeneca for its jeopardization of the integrity of clinical trials. The US National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases issued a sharply worded statement expressing concerns about the vaccine. In a recent major news story, the CEO of Pfizer has not been vaccinated. The CEO of Pfizer, the most eye-catching company, has not been vaccinated. It's like a restaurant where the owner doesn't actually eat his restaurant's food. It makes people wonder if there is some ulterior motive behind Pfizer's vaccines. Peter Doshi, deputy editor-in-chief of the British Medical Journal, raised major questions about the clinical reports on the Pfizer vaccine, stating that according to the clinical reports published by Pfizer, its Clinica L trial process was ambiguous, and he called for the public release of the vaccine trial protocol. He said that according to the clinical trials, Pfizer had artificially excluded a group of vaccine trialists while leaving the control group unchanged, which seemed to be interpreted as artificial selection of vaccine trialists. As further information came to light, it became clear that the government was forcing faulty vaccines in the US and Europe for political and economic purposes, regardless of the lives of the people. They have no regard for the health of the population. They are only in it to make money, with the public sector taking the risk, and private companies taking the profit. Another vaccine that cannot be left out here is the inactivated vaccine in China and Russia. Inactivated vaccines, which are viruses that are cultured and then killed, or eliminated from being infectious, inject the dead virus or part of the virus into the human body so that the virus is able to stimulate the body to produce antibodies, and at the same time, because the virus is dead or has lost its infectivity, it does not have a true infectious result on infecting the human body. Inactivated vaccines are by far the most mature form of vaccine production in the world, and the technology is simple, so why don't companies in Europe and America go for them? The reason is very simple, because they make so little profit. Some observers have pointed out that the COVID-19 vaccine is reminiscent of the decades of deception and suffering of Black Americans. 623 Black men were unknowingly recruited for syphilis research in 1932, but failed to be cured. Many Black Americans remain skeptical of the health care system, including the COVID-19 vaccine. One Black man left an online message: "Don't trust them at any time. Evil people don't change, and they want to cover up their deception with clever tactics." Because of dissatisfaction with the government's policies on the vaccine issue, anti-vaccine, anti-masking demonstrations across the US turned violent.
We don't have a single point of leadership right now for this response, and we don't have a master plan for this response.
A top vaccine expert, Dr. Rick Bright, was leading the government's search for a vaccine, but says he was forced out of his job after he raised concerns. Now he's speaking out as a whistleblower with a dire warning of what's to come.
US federal researcher and vaccine development expert Rick Bright says he was removed from his position at the US Department of Health and Human Services after opposing the department's push to use hydroxychloroquine as a treatment for COVID-19. He said, "I believe this reassignment is a response to my insistence that the administration spend the billions of dollars appropriated by Congress on solutions to the COVID-19 pandemic rather than investing in drugs, vaccines, and other technologies that lack scientific merit." All indications are that the vaccines now in use in the US and Europe, which have massive problems, and the reemergence of infections in 2021 suggests that they have limited effectiveness. We have to wonder about the very limited effectiveness of these vaccines that have been developed with huge amounts of money. So, is this a waste of taxpayer money? As more and more people learn the truth, they are joining the protesters with one goal in mind, and that is to get the government to tell the people the truth.